Welcome. In this tutorial, we'll show you how to automate contact creation in ZOHO using RunMyProcess. Say goodbye to manual data entry and hello to seamless automation that saves you time and boosts productivity. Let's get started. Start by navigating to your project in RunMyProcess and selecting Create Web Interface. Enter a descriptive name like ZOHO Bigin or Web Interface and click Confirm. In just seconds, your web interface will be created. Next, open the web modeler to design the form. Use the drag and drop tool to add fields such as first name, last name, email, phone, and account name. Adjust the labels if needed for clarity and organization. Once everything is in place, click Save to finalize your form. In no time, you'll have a functional web interface ready to capture contact details with ease. Now, let's configure the provider for ZOHO OAuth authentication. In the Connectors tab, click on Create New Provider and select HTTPS Protocol as the type. Enter the URL //accounts.zoho.coms in the URL field. This will be the endpoint for ZOHO's OAuth authentication. In the Login field, input your client ID from ZOHO Bigin. In the Password field, enter your client secret from ZOHO Bigin. These credentials are necessary to establish a secure connection with ZOHO's API. Ensure the authentication scheme is set to login password, as this method utilizes the client ID and client secret. By completing these steps, you've successfully configured the provider to communicate securely with ZOHO Bigin via OAuth. Go to the Connectors tab and click Create New Connector. Name it Get Token and set the connector URL to v2's token. Choose Post as the meth RPC as the architecture and JSON as the result format. Set Accept Media Type to Application JSON and Content Type to Application XURL encoded. In the Content field, add Makefile, copiar código refresh tokens your refresh token and client ID equals your client ID and client secrets your client secret and grant type refresh token. Replace the placeholders with your ZOHO credentials. Click Save to complete the configuration. Now the connector is ready to retrieve your token securely. To create a new provider for ZOHO contact creation, go to the Connectors tab and click Create New Provider to start the configuration process. Name the provider something clear, like ZOHO Bigin, and in the URL field, enter www.zohoapis.com/. Set the authentication scheme to custom, and for the scheme name, type bearer. In the Credentials field, paste the token you previously obtained using the Get Token connector. Make sure to check the Secured box to keep your credentials safe, and once everything is filled out, click Save. Your provider is now ready to handle authenticated requests to ZOHO's API for creating contacts efficiently. To create the first connector for adding an account name, start by navigating to the Connectors tab under the newly created provider. Click Create New Connector and name it something clear, like Create Account. In the configuration screen, set the connector URL to Bigin v2 accounts and choose Post as the method. For architecture, select REST XML RPC and ensure the result format is set to JSON. In the Content field, add a JSON with the fields account name and phone. Set the content type to application/JSON and ensure the accept media type is also set to application JSON. Once the configuration is complete, click Save to finalize your connector. For the connector to create a contact, we repeat the process with the only difference being the connector URL, which should be set to Bigin v2/contacts, and the fields in the Content field, which will include all the contact information such as first name, last name, email, phone, mobile, and account name. Once done, save the configuration to finalize the connector. Now, go to the Processes tab and click New to create a new process. Name it Create Contact Process. In the Process Designer, drag and drop 3 activity boxes onto the canvas. Label the first one as Login, the second as Create Account, and the third as Create Contact. Finally, close the process with an end event to complete the flow structure. We start by configuring the first activity as a connector type. Select the Get Token connector that we created earlier. Once linked, add an output variable and name it Refresh Token. This variable will capture the token returned by the connector's response. To ensure everything is working correctly, you can test the connector directly and verify that it retrieves the expected token value. This step is essential for passing the token securely to the subsequent activities in the process. Next, we configure the second activity and name it Create Account. Select the connector type and choose the Create Account connector we created earlier. Once selected, you will notice that the required input variables are automatically generated. Now, add two output variables. The first one will be named Account ID, which will store the value returned by the response, indicating the created account's unique identifier. The second variable will be named Account Data, which will hold all the details of the account creation response from ZOHO Bigin. These variables will be used in subsequent steps to link the account data to the contact creation process. Finally, we configure our last activity and name it Create Contact. Set the activity type to Connector and select the Create Contact connector we previously configured. Once confirmed, several input variables will be automatically generated, such as first name and others required by the connector. Next, we add two output variables. The first one will be Contact Data, which will capture the full response from ZOHO Bigin regarding the contact creation. The second variable will be Contact ID, which will store the unique identifier of the newly created contact. You can verify the response structure by testing the connector and checking the response object to ensure the paths are accurate. Once everything is set, save the process and it's ready to use. And that's it. Now, let's test our application. Open the web interface and begin by filling out the form with some example information. Start by entering the first name, last name, and email address. Then, add a phone number and a mobile number, and finally, link it to an account name. Once all the fields are completed, double-check the information to ensure accuracy and click the Submit button. In just a few moments, the automation will work its magic, and a new contact will be created automatically in ZOHO Bigin. This workflow is incredibly useful for streamlining processes like lead management, customer onboarding, or syncing data across systems. By automating repetitive tasks like these, businesses can save valuable time, minimize errors, and focus on higher value activities, boosting overall productivity and efficiency.